Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In his grasp, the charity brochure shimmered, dampened by his nervous perspiration. Sincere Morgan's eyes fixed on the words that seemed to taunt him. Local Heroes Drag Show. There, amongst the list of brave souls, was his name, a volunteer for a night of glitz and glamour, all for a noble cause. As he grappled with the realization of what he had agreed to, Sincere felt a mix of anxiety and awe. How had Monica, the well-intentioned event organizer, persuaded him to step into this dazzling yet unfamiliar realm? "It's only a single night," she assured, her comforting voice cutting through his swirling thoughts. Sincere took a deep breath, considering the hospital's urgent need that resonated with his own story of familial hope. He knew then that this daring venture was simply an act of love, a small sacrifice in the grand scheme. His colleague Monica had been relentless in her recruitment, insisting he had the perfect bone structure for a dramatic transformation. The event was scheduled for Saturday, only 4 days away. Sincere adjusted his navy blue blazer and khaki slacks, his standard office attire, and tried to focus on the logistics meeting, but his thoughts kept drifting to what lay ahead. What would he look like? How would it feel? Would his friends mock him, even knowing it was for charity? "You'll meet your artist tomorrow for a consultation," Monica continued. "Her name is Valentina. She's worked on Broadway and does makeup for fashion shoots. We're lucky to have her." Sincere nodded again, this time with genuine appreciation. If he was going to do this, at least it would be done well. The next afternoon, Sincere found himself in a converted backstage area, sitting nervously in a director's chair, facing a formidable array of makeup brushes, sponges, and products he couldn't begin to identify.
"So, you're my canvas,"
said a voice behind him. He turned to see a statuesque woman with geometric glasses and a sleek black pantsuit. Her own makeup was subtle but flawless, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. "I'm Valentina," she said, extending a hand. "And you're about to become someone extraordinary."
"Sincere,"
he replied, standing to shake her hand.
"And I'm terrified."
Valentina laughed, a warm sound that immediately put him more at ease. "Don't be. This is art, not torture. And judging by these cheekbones," she gently touched his face, "we're going to create something beautiful." They spent an hour discussing the look she envisioned. Valentina sketched as they talked, showing him the transformation she planned, a sophisticated woman in a purple off-shoulder gown, with hair styled in loose waves and makeup that would enhance his features without crossing into caricature.
"You have naturally long eyelashes," she observed, "and your lips have a perfect Cupid's bow. We'll accentuate those."
Sincere found himself oddly comforted by her professional assessment, the way she saw his face as a series of features to enhance rather than flaws to disguise. "What name have you chosen for your drag persona?" Valentina asked as she made notes about foundation shades.
"I haven't thought about it,"
Sincere admitted. Valentina studied him for a moment.
"You strike me as a Juliana." "Juliana,"
he repeated, testing the name on his tongue. It felt strange, but not unpleasant.
"Okay. Juliana it is."
Saturday arrived too quickly. Sincere arrived at the venue 3 hours before showtime, his stomach knotted with anxiety. The dressing room buzzed with activity as other volunteers met their makeup artists and wardrobe assistants. Valentina greeted him with a calm smile. "Ready to meet Juliana?"
As ready as I'll ever be," Sincere replied, settling into the chair.
The transformation began with skincare, cleansing, moisturizing, priming. Then came foundation, concealer, contour. Sincere watched, fascinated, as Valentina worked, explaining each step. "We're creating light and shadow," she said, blending along his cheekbones, "enhancing what's already there." The eye makeup came next. Valentina applied lilac eyeshadow in varying shades, blending it outward in a subtle wing, black liner, smudged and smoky, false lashes that felt impossibly heavy at first. "Close your eyes," Valentina instructed, wielding a makeup setting spray. "Now, let's do your lips." The coral lipstick was the final touch to the makeup. When Valentina swiveled the chair to face the mirror, Sincere couldn't speak. The face looking back wasn't his, yet somehow was more his than any reflection he'd ever seen. The lilac eyeshadow made his brown eyes look deeper, more expressive. The contour accentuated cheekbones he hadn't known he possessed. The coral lips were full, perfectly defined.
"Now for the transformation," Valentina said, seemingly oblivious to his shock. The next hour passed in a blur of body shapers, padding, and finally, the gown. A flowing purple creation that draped off one shoulder and gathered at the waist before falling to the floor. Valentina secured the auburn wig, styled in loose waves that framed his face and fell past his shoulders. "The final touch," she said, fastening diamond chandelier earrings to his ears. "These catch the light when you move. They'll sparkle under the stage lights." Sincere stood before the full-length mirror, unable to process the vision before him. The person reflected there was elegant, beautiful, confident. Everything he'd never seen in himself. "Meet Juliana,"
Valentina said softly. Something shifted inside him. A recognition. A homecoming. The makeup and clothes hadn't disguised him. They had revealed something that had always been there, waiting.
"She's beautiful," Sincere whispered.
"She is," Valentina agreed.
"And she's you."
The show itself passed in a dreamlike state. Juliana glided onto the stage when her name was called, smiling as the audience applauded. There were wolf whistles and cheers, but also genuine appreciation for the transformation. She posed, turned, and walked with a grace Sincere had never possessed, but Juliana seemed to have been born with. Afterward, still in full drag, she accepted compliments from strangers and friends alike. Everyone praised Valentina's artistry, the gown, the overall effect. But only Sincere knew the truth, that underneath the makeup and clothes was a revelation he wasn't prepared for. When the night ended and the makeup came off, something of Juliana remained. A ghost in the mirror. A truth unveiled. The following Monday, back in his navy blazer and khakis, Sincere sat at his desk, staring at his computer screen without seeing it. The charity event had been a tremendous success, raising over $50,000. His coworkers teased him good-naturedly, showing him photos they'd taken of Juliana in all her purple-gowned glory. He smiled and laughed along, but inside, something was shifting. The memory of being Juliana lingered, not just the appearance, but the feeling of rightness that had washed over him. That evening, instead of driving home, Sincere found himself at a mall on the other side of town. Before he could reconsider, he was inside a department store, moving tentatively toward the women's section. A saleswoman approached. "Can I help you find something?" she asked.
For my sister, Sincere said automatically. Her birthday. The lie came easily, and the saleswoman nodded, helping him select a simple blue wrap dress in what she assured him was a common size. He added a scarf, telling himself it was to make the gift look more substantial. At the cosmetics counter, he hesitated before purchasing a coral lipstick, the exact shade Valentina had used. At home, alone in his apartment, Sincere placed the shopping bag on his bed and stared at it for a long time before removing its contents. The dress was nothing like the elaborate gown he'd worn as Juliana. It was casual, practical, the kind of thing a woman might wear to the office or out to lunch with friends. With trembling hands, he changed out of his work clothes and slipped the dress over his head. Without the body shapers and padding, it hung differently than the gown had, but when he belted it at the waist, he could see the suggestion of a feminine silhouette. The coral lipstick went on messily. He had none of Valentina's skill, but the color was just as he remembered, brightening his face. He stood before the mirror, heart racing, and saw Juliana peeking through, waiting to be fully realized. It became a secret ritual. Each week, Sincere would visit a different store in a different part of town, gradually building Juliana's wardrobe, flowing maxi dresses in jewel tones, cropped leather jackets for layering, delicate ballet flats that he had to order online in his size, a growing collection of makeup that he practiced applying late at night, following tutorials on his laptop. He bought a proper auburn wig, similar to the one Valentina had chosen, and learned to style it. The weight of it on his head, the feel of the synthetic hair against his neck, brought immediate calm. In those private moments, Juliana wasn't a costume or a character. She was him, at his most authentic. 2 months after the charity event, Sincere took a week of vacation time. He told his coworkers he was visiting family out of state. Instead, he spent the entire week as Juliana, not leaving his apartment but living fully in her skin. By the 4th day, the clothes and makeup no longer felt like a disguise, but like coming home. It was during that week that Sincere realized the truth he'd been circling. Juliana wasn't a persona he put on. She was who he was meant to be. The charity event hadn't created something new. It had simply provided the opportunity for recognition. The decision to tell someone felt simultaneously terrifying and inevitable. Sincere chose his closest friend, Daniel, inviting him over for their usual Thursday night takeout and movie. "There's something I need to tell you," Sincere said as they settled on the couch with containers of Thai food. Daniel looked up, chopsticks halfway to his mouth. "You sound serious. Everything okay?" "I'm not sure how to say this." Sincere set his food aside, untouched. "Remember the charity event? The drag show? How could I forget? You made one hot lady." Daniel grinned. Then his expression shifted as he noted Sincere's gravity. "What about it?" "It changed something for me. Or revealed something, I guess." Sincere took a deep breath. Being Juliana that night, it felt right in a way nothing ever has. Daniel set his food down, giving Sincere his full attention. "What are you saying exactly?" I know I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I always have been. I just didn't have the words or the opportunity to understand it until now." The silence that followed felt eternal. Sincere stared at the carpet, heart hammering, unable to look up. "Okay," Daniel finally said. "So, Juliana? Is that your name now?" Sincere looked up, stunned by the simple acceptance in the question. "Yes, I think it is." Daniel nodded slowly. "All right then, Juliana. This is a lot to process, but I'm here. Whatever you need. Relief flooded through her. Because she was Juliana now, even if only Daniel knew it. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and Daniel moved to sit beside her, placing an awkward but comforting hand on her shoulder. I have no idea what I'm doing, she admitted. Well, that makes two of us, Daniel replied. But we'll figure it out. Over the next few weeks, with Daniel's support, Juliana began to research in earnest. She found a therapist specializing in gender identity. She joined online forums. She learned about hormones and legal name changes and the 1,000 small steps that lay ahead. She began to grow out her hair, letting the dark brown strands that had always been kept short begin to cover her ears, curl at her neck. Until it was long enough, the auburn wig remained her comfort, her affirmation. Telling her family was harder. Her parents, traditional and religious, struggled to understand. Her mother cried. Her father asked if she was sure, if this was some kind of delayed reaction to a traumatic event. They used her birth name stubbornly, as if repetition could make Juliana disappear. But her younger sister, after the initial shock, became an unexpected ally. I always wondered why you were so interested in my clothes when we were kids, she said during a teary phone call. This makes a weird kind of sense. Work presented its own challenges. Juliana requested a meeting with her supervisor and the HR director, sitting nervously in her navy blazer and khakis for what she hoped would be the last time. I'm transgender, she told them, the words becoming slightly easier with each telling. I'm beginning my transition. I wanted to discuss how we handle this in the workplace. To her surprise, they were prepared. The company had policies in place. There would be a name change in the system, an email to the department, access to appropriate restrooms. Challenges would arise, they acknowledged, but they were committed to supporting her. A week later, Juliana came to work in that first blue wrap dress she had bought, her auburn hair styled simply, her makeup subtle but present. She wore small silver earrings and the lowest heels she could find, still unsteady in anything higher. The stares were expected. The whispers, too. Some colleagues avoided her entirely, unsure what to say. Others were overly enthusiastic, their support tinged with the awkwardness of people trying very hard not to say the wrong thing. But by lunchtime, the initial shock had given way to routine. Work was still work. Reports still needed filing. Clients still needed calling. Juliana did her job as she always had, just finally in the right skin. 6 months after the charity event, Juliana received an email from Monica, the event coordinator who had recruited her for the drag show. Annual fundraiser planning starting. Thought you might want to be involved again. Different role this time. Coffee next week to discuss? Juliana smiled at the screen. Different role indeed. They met at a cafe near the office, Monica's eyes widening slightly as Juliana approached the table in an emerald green dress and those same ballet flats she'd become comfortable in. Wow, Monica said. I heard through the grapevine, but seeing you is something else. You look amazing, Juliana. Thanks to you, in a way, Juliana said, sliding into the seat across from her. If you hadn't bullied me into that drag show... Monica laughed. I have an eye for these things, though I have to admit, I was just thinking you'd make a pretty drag queen, not that it would change your life. Valentina knew, Juliana said quietly. I think she saw something in me that first day. She wasn't just doing makeup, she was revealing something. Have you told her? She'd love to know. Juliana shook her head. I wouldn't know how to find her. Monica's eyes lit up. She's doing makeup for the fundraiser again this year. That's partly why I wanted to meet.
I thought maybe you'd want to help backstage. Share your story with some of the volunteers who might be as nervous as you were." The idea of returning to where it all began, but now fully as herself, filled Juliana with a strange mixture of anxiety and rightness. "I'd like that," she said. The day of the second annual charity drag show, Juliana arrived early, her auburn hair now natural and grown to her shoulders, styled in the same loose waves Valentina had chosen for her wig a year ago. She wore a simple, plum-colored sheath dress, comfortable yet professional for her backstage role.
"Juliana?"
A familiar voice made her turn. Valentina stood there, her geometric glasses and sleek bun unchanged. She studied Juliana for a long moment, then broke into a wide smile.
"It is you,"
she said. "Monica told me, but I wanted to see for myself." "It's me," Juliana confirmed. "Thanks to you, in many ways." Valentina shook her head. "I didn't do anything but show you what was already there. You gave me permission to see myself clearly for the first time." "The makeup comes off," Valentina said gently. "What remains is what matters, and look at what remained with you." They worked side by side throughout the day, preparing the volunteer drag queens for their stage debuts. Juliana shared her story with those who asked, recognizing in some of them the same shock of recognition she had experienced. "It's not about the makeup or the clothes," she told one volunteer who couldn't stop staring at his reflection. "It's about what feels true. For most people, this will be a fun night, a good story, a memory of doing something for charity. And that's wonderful. But for some, it might be the beginning of understanding something deeper." As the show began and Juliana watched from backstage, she felt a completeness she'd once thought impossible. The journey ahead was still long. There would be hormones and possibly surgeries, legal battles and personal challenges. There would be days when strangers' stares cut deep, when family members slipped and used her old name, when she herself looked in the mirror and momentarily didn't recognize the person looking back. But tonight, watching another group of volunteers experience their transformations, Juliana knew with absolute certainty that the path she was on was the right one. Valentina had not created Juliana with makeup brushes and an auburn wig. She had simply provided the opportunity for Juliana to finally step forward and claim her truth. A year later, Juliana stood before an audience in that same venue, but this time as a speaker rather than a participant. Her auburn hair was styled in a simple bob, her purple dress echoing the one she'd worn in the original show. The diamond chandelier earrings, a gift from Daniel on the first anniversary of her coming out, caught the stage lights just as Valentina had promised they would.
"A makeup artist once told me that what she does is about light and shadow,"
Juliana said into the microphone. "Enhancing what's already there." I didn't understand then that she wasn't just talking about contouring. She was talking about truth. The audience, a mix of medical professionals, charity supporters, and members of the transgender community, listened intently. We all have aspects of ourselves that remain in shadow until the right light reveals them. For me, that light came in the form of a charity drag show and a makeup artist who saw past the surface. For others, it might be a different catalyst entirely. The important thing isn't how we discover our truths, but that we honor them when they emerge. From the side of the stage, Valentina watched with a proud smile. In the front row, Daniel and Juliana's sister applauded loudest when she finished speaking. Her parents were not present. That relationship remained strained, but they were trying, in their way, to understand. After the event, as Juliana gathered her things backstage, Valentina approached with a small gift bag. For you, she said. A reminder. Inside was a compact of lilac eyeshadow and a tube of coral lipstick, the exact shades from that first transformation. I still have the first coral lipstick I bought, Juliana admitted. I've never used it. It seemed too precious somehow. Use this one, Valentina urged. Makeup isn't meant to be preserved. It's meant to be worn. Just like identities aren't meant to be hidden. They're meant to be lived. Juliana nodded, understanding the deeper message. I will. Later that night, in the quiet of her apartment, a new place, decorated to reflect her true self, Juliana opened the compact and lipstick. She applied them carefully, the skills she'd practiced for months, now second nature. The lilac shadow, the coral lips, the colors that had first shown her who she was. The woman in the mirror smiled back at her. Not a disguise, not a persona, just Juliana, finally and completely herself. She took a photo and sent it to Daniel with the caption, "Full circle." His reply came moments later. "Beautiful as always, but then you always were." Juliana set down her phone and studied her reflection once more. The journey hadn't been easy, and it wasn't over. There would always be challenges, always be growth. But sitting there, wearing the colors that had first revealed her to herself, Juliana felt something that had once seemed impossible. Peace. The makeup artist hadn't just changed her appearance that night at the charity show. She had helped Juliana discover her true self, the woman who had always existed behind the shadows, waiting for the right light to reveal her. And now, living fully in that light, Juliana was finally home.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!